Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
You guys can see my screen, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the agenda. We have the old business. If anybody has any items of the old business that they want to bring up at this time, again, we're recording these meeting minutes and so we're posting those to the website so that we have them in to go back on. So we're not actually typing up minutes at this time. Does anybody have any old business they want to bring up?
Mm-hmm. None for me.
None for me.
No.
Okay.
No.
I just have a few things I want to take you through this evening. The first is the self-funding analysis for the health insurance. So far, we've had a very good year with our health insurance through the 10 months through April 2020. We have now netted $1.5 million versus our budgeted revenue and our actual expenditures related to the actual expenses incurred. Now, that could be because once March 20th came along, you can see that, those numbers get kind of large, but they were actually large prior to that. But, certainly once the COVID-19 began, all elective surgeries were put off. So we have potentially some, claims that may be coming due in the future, but for the time being, the self funding of our health insurance is going very, very well. And we actually have some things we're going to talk about to actually improve that this evening as far as the stop loss. At this point, you can see that there's not been any stop loss reimbursements for the entire year. So we have no claims over $200,000. And so we continue to do very well with our self-funding of our health insurance.
Okay.
Okay. Good.
Okay.
Okay.
Tax states, I just wanted to bring to your attention that there is a bill being considered out there. At one point they talked about not permitting this local school districts to raise the millage rate because of COVID-19, the pandemic, and the implications on the economy. And that didn't go very far in the legislature. But what did gain some traction and is still out there floating around is this idea that you would extend the period for taxpayers to make their payments in the upcoming year, meaning that you wouldn't permit a penalty period. You would just continue the face period until the end of the year, and even perhaps giving them additional month. Right now, we have to turn over our tax duplicate of uncollected local taxes at almost at the end of the calendar year, so December 31st. And they're talking about even extending that into sometime in January. So I just wanted you to know that that's out there. If it becomes law, we would make adjustments. They would have to let us know very quickly if they're going to pass this. But at this point, it has not yet passed, and it would have a detrimental effect to our revenue line items of $290,000 that we have budgeted for those who go into the penalty period. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention, just in case it happens, and if you see that it seems different this year, it'd be because of this law that would be passed, and we'd make the adjustments as we go forward. Okay.
Okay.
Do we get any inkling that anyone's in favor of it or not? I mean, I would think it's probably going to happen because of people's cash flow.
Yeah, I don't know. It's something that our PASBO legislative committee talks about. Guys, just so you know, this is out there, but they've never said that it's gaining any traction. They've never said it's dead though either. So it's out there. It's laying in the House. I'm not even sure the Senate's yet even considered it, but I know it's out there.
All right.
All right.
The next item on the agenda tonight, 2.03, I had, in two different occasions, I had talked about the future Act 1 indexes being lower because that's the information that we had at the time. So in two of my presentations, I talked about future Act 1 indexes would be lower because of the pandemic and the impact that was having on earned or wages. And part of the Act 1 index is the state average weekly wage. But now we're getting revised guidance from our research arm of PASBO saying that there's some nuances related to the economic impact of the pandemic and that lower income individuals are being hit harder than upper income people. And if you think about that, that may make sense when you think about the service industry and waiters and waitresses and line cooks and all these people that are being affected because of the closing. They are having potentially a bigger impact than other industries. So what they're saying now is that they're looking at that the Act 1 index may be as high as 3% next year, 2.9. And I just wanted to put that on the record that we're correcting it, because I had put on the record twice that we believed it was going to be lower. And there's no action for you to take other than I just wanted you to know that information I previously gave you may have been erroneous.
Okay.
Or it may not be, right? We don't really know.
It may not be. That's true too, Artie. But I just wanted to correct the record because, they were giving me information and I dutifully passed it on, and now they're saying, wait, that might not have been the right thing to say. So I just wanted to correct
until next month when they come out with another
something new. Yeah.
I'll correct it then if I have to.
Yeah.
I'm not too big to say I made a mistake. I'll admit it.
Oh, it's not you. You're providing us with the information that they're giving you.
I know. I just want to keep us all on the same page.
Yeah, I know, but I think it's a changing target or a moving target. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The next item I have for us tonight to discuss for approval at the next meeting is the Aramark contract for 2021. And if you get into the details of this agreement, we have the last page is really the page that you might be most interested in. On that last page, it talks about their fee, which is up from $122,000 last year to $124,000 this year, $124,973. You can see right there, and also they have a guaranteed last year of $265,000. However, this year, this upcoming year, they're guaranteeing return to the district of $350,000. So an additional $85,000 return to the district. So I believe this is a good contract that we should approve. We had previously talked about this several months ago in November when we were thinking about would we go forward or not with a potential change, and if we did, that would take several months to enact and do the proper due diligence. And we decided at that time we'd give this their last year before we would be required to go out to bid. And so this is that document that we are asking the board to approve on at our June meeting. Anybody have any questions on that?
This is the 5th year of the contract, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
This is the 5th year of the contract.
Hey, Don,
Yes, sir.
what's going on with them as far as the pandemic with our schools being shut down? I know we're providing lunches, but we're certainly not getting the variety that they would normally provide us with. You give me some idea what their standing is? I mean, is there any way we get reimbursed for the food services we're not using this year?
No, we don't get. We will not get reimbursed for the services we're not getting this year, and the food service is going to take a hit as we look back at 1920, because if you recall, we're paying our employees, and yet we're not providing all these lunches to reimburse us for that. We do get reimbursed for the meals that we're serving to the community, and if it was only those employees that were required to take those meals, to make those meals, it would actually run at a profit. But considering that we're required to pay everybody for the entire year, the food service fund this year is going to take a significant hit.
Okay. I honestly, I forgot about that. Labor.
Yeah, and there's nothing we can do about that this year.
Does their fee get prorated, Don?
Pardon me?
Does their fee get prorated in any way?
No, because they're actually still providing that services to us.
All right. Okay.
With these meals that we're serving.
Okay. Yeah.
Hey, Don.
Yes, sir.
Tina and I were speaking about the issue of food service, and one thing we were hoping for this year was to get a better opportunity to oversee their promised increase in management oversight and supervision. Of course, this year, we're not able to do that, but you're new. basically to the district, from a management and oversight point of view, and what's your impression, of Aramark, since you haven't been here when they first started?
You know what? I think they do a fairly good job. And as I was showing you guys the numbers prior to the pandemic, their sales for this year were significantly increased as were compared to the previous years. I mean, we were going to serve, I think, an additional 35,000 lunches this year, had we been able to get through this year before the interruption. So I thought that they did a fairly good job this year, considering the number of lunches they serve. I mean, they're serving 9,000 kids a day, or at least making the meals available to 9,000 kids a day. And I think that they do a fairly good job. I mean, I understand that there could be more choices potentially, and some people, are on one end that they want their kids to have chicken nuggets every day because that's what the kids like, and there's other parents that want to have their kids introduced to more diverse menu options. So it's hard to please everybody, but I think when you think of about the job that they've done, and the proof is in the pudding as we were going down this year, that their sales were significantly increased.
And how about the interaction between Aramark and our staff?
Yeah.
I think that's calmed down. I think that initially I thought there was a lot of bumps in the road, and I think with the gentleman that they have here this year, Matt Tagliabeer, I'm not sure I'm saying his name correctly. Tagliabeer, I think it is.
We know who it is.
Yeah, I think he's calmed a lot of things down. I think the employees have calmed down a little bit and have accepted Aramark's role. And I knew it was a problem prior to my arrival, and I can tell you that I dealt with very few problems this year because of it.
All right, great. It's fantastic to hear. Thank you.
I think it may have been the Aramark point person at that time too.
Yes, and that change was made. You're right, Marty.
There's definitely
And it takes the right person to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Now, if we have any wrinkles on the agenda tonight, it's this next item, because I want to bring to your attention something that I was trying to do to make things comparable, and it relates to this idea that if we were to have an interruption in services this year for a prolonged period, and we were to potentially I want the board to continue to have the option, if they were to furlough our employees, that SDA would have to do the same thing. So I included language working with Torrente to do so, and in that language is here highlighted. For any reason, the district reduces the in-person school days below 180, is open only virtually to students, and no transportations are provided. The district agrees to compensate the contractor, and let's just say X for right now, the daily rate for the regularly scheduled routes and substitute drivers. As you sit back as a taxpayer, you want that to be zero because you're not receiving any services. The contractor this year, they got 100% because we agreed to pay them as if they're our own employees. But if we were to have an opportunity to furlough people and required to do so to reduce expenditures, there's got to be something somewhere in between 0 and 100% that I think we would be required to pay the contractor. And I put the marker down here at 50%. And that's where I left it with STA, in all honesty. And then I gave them another email and I said, hey guys, that's not right, because at 50% of your rate, that includes your hourly rate for your employees plus your fringe cost. And so it can't be 50% because that's pretty much what unemployment costs would be. Maybe slightly more than 50% of their wages, but it wouldn't be any percentage of their fringe cost. And so as I bring this to you tonight, I want you to know that this is out there, and I'd like to hear your feedback of where you think it could be or where you think you would expect it to be.
Well, I mean, I think you answered my thought would be I would like it to be 0, but I also realize we have a contractual obligation here.
Yeah.
But I hear your point about 50% because they're not going to have the fringe and the related payroll taxes.
Right.
So, I mean, only because I'm a glutton sometimes, I would rather see it around the 30 to 35% number.
Okay.
I don't know. That's just my thought.
That's not a bad thought, Marty. There's no bad idea on this at all. You
No,
can't be wrong
thanks,
with
thanks, Don. It's the first time I heard that today.
You guys should have seen my day. I should tell you about it sometime we have an opportunity.
Don, in similar consideration to how we've approached our own staff, I'm just, wondering, especially with this division, maintaining, drivers, as we know from the beginning of this year, has been extremely difficult. Are we wondering what type of retention rate they're going to have in such a slowdown? I know we discussed it earlier in the year when we agreed to pay them that they were going to maintain their driver base for us. I mean,
Yes.
where's that part of the conversation going?
That's still up to the board. I mean, if the board were to say to our drivers and to STA that we're not going to furlough employees to have a retention of 100%, we don't have to worry about this. I was just trying to keep this door open in case the board wanted to, because previously the contract was silent on this, and I didn't want to get into a situation where we're trying to mop this up afterwards. I was trying to be proactive. And I think Marty's at that 30-35%. He might be a little low, but I think at 40, I think we begin to, between 35 to 40, I think we begin to get to the right amount. But I just wanted to keep this door available in case you guys, I'm not sure if we'd have a contracted closure, and perhaps if the economy would continue to be poorly, maybe CDL drivers wouldn't be as hard to get back. I don't know.
Right.
All right.
Right.
So what you're saying, if I'm trying to put this together now, this is in the event that we as the district are forced into furloughing drivers, right?
Yes, that's good.
And right now, the contract as it's written, without this in there, you're assuming they would assume they're going to get paid full boat.
They should assume that because that's what we did this year.
Yeah. I see your point, and I agree with it wholeheartedly. If we're going to be furloughing our in-house personnel, it's only fair.
Right. I wanted them to be treated exactly as we're treating our own.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So between now and our board meeting, I'll continue to work at that 50% number with STA. And when I know they're screaming too loud, I'll know I'm at the right number.
Okay.
Okay.
Which is 25, 30, right? Yeah.
Well, we'll start there.
Oh,
So-
we're starting to hit 18.
Okay. All right.
Go back to zero.
Yeah. Go back to zero, right.
Okay. The next item is the stop loss renewal. And I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with stop loss. You had only had it really previously, potentially one other discussion about it. And I'm not sure why my screen is not performing well. But stop loss insurance is to protect the self-funding health insurance so that no one claim can bankrupt the program, or a significant run of claims that are high can't bankrupt the entire program. And so up until this point, we've had that insurance level kick in at $200,000. And this really has very little to do with it, although this is about health insurance, this is more like a general liability type insurance where once it reaches that claim amount, then the insurance kicks in, the secondary insurance kicks in. And so what I've worked with Stalker to look at increasing the amount, because again, we haven't had any claim reach our level of insurance, and we're paying about $1 million a year for this insurance. And so if you kick it up to $250,000, we can have a $285,000 savings next year on the stop loss insurance. And Stalker's okay with that. He feels comfortable. I was trying to get him to go to 300. He was a little bit apprehensive about that, and he's our consultant. And I'm only involved in this once a year, and he's involved with it all the time. So I think we should probably go with his recommendation. And you can see that with this U.S. Fire Insurance Company, with the $250,000 right here in the middle, we would instead of paying $1 million a year, we'd be paid next year $734,127.
Mhm.
So that's the stalker's recommendation, and that's also my recommendation that we would approve this at the June meeting.
Okay.
Don, on your analysis of the self-funded insurance before, we haven't had any reimbursements on the stop loss.
We had
This year?
the previous year, Marty. We had several,
Okay, but not this year. Okay,
but not this year.
okay.
Mhm.
Don,
And-
if you could you just work through an example for us? Would this be on a per claim basis, or do we have aggregate coverage as well? I mean, we only budget so much money every year, for
Yeah.
medical claims being self-funded. So could you just kind of
Yes, this is on
play a scenario out for me?
Yeah, this is on a per claim basis, and where you see this typically, honestly, is either at the end of life, where you have somebody who's very seriously ill with some type of dreaded disease, and they're at the end of life, and they're trying to prolong their life as long as they can, or at the very beginning of life when you have prenatal care, you sometimes will see the stop loss insurance come in. So what happens is if a person, a dependent and or a contract holder of the actual employee, when that individual's claims get over now $250,000, we'll get reimbursed dollar for dollar. So if that claim this year gets to be $700,000, they'll write us a check for the $550,000
Okay.
or the $450,000. But it is not an aggregate insurance program.
Okay, what happens then in the aggregate where I think what do we budget? 12 million a year? I forget
Yes,
what we budget. 12 million.
approximately.
So say we have a year where we have $14 million in claims, but yet none of them exceed the stop loss threshold. We then are solely responsible for that extra 2 million?
Yes, and
Yes.
that's where you see, Steve, where last year we finished with $400,000, and I've set that aside as a separate fund balance for self-insurance. And this year you're going to see where we're going to set aside probably $1.5 million, and we would have now $1.9 million set aside for that year. And that's not going to happen probably, but
Right.
if it would, then you have this cushion. And then what you see is that cushion then will be able to mitigate increases if you have, let's say you don't get to $6 or $12 million, but let's say you get to 11, and it looks like claims are increasing by 10%. Then potentially you can take that $1.9 million and offset the actual increase going forward to both your budget and to your employees' costs moving forward. So you can mitigate some of that cost and that shock value for any one year that goes poorly.
Okay.
But there's no type of coverage that our consultants would recommend for an aggregate situation.
No.
Okay.
It will be going back. It will be going back to a traditional plan.
Right,
Yeah.
that would take us back to a traditional
Yes.
plan. Okay, thank you for that, Don.
Okay. So that's our recommendation for that.
Okay.
And then for our last item, potentially our biggest item, but really there's no changes as we have left this. We have really no programmatic changes. We went over those potential programmatic cuts. We didn't really like any of them. We got no additional funding. I think the governors and the state legislature have really stepped up and provided us no cuts. And, we're potentially using some care funds that we're going to get. And I think, considering the circumstances, we've got as much money as we could have possibly asked from the state in this fiscal year, considering their position. I'd always like to have more, but I think they've been fair. And I don't see this really changing between now and when we take the final vote at the end of the month.
Don, can I make a comment here?
Certainly.
So we're still planning on having a tax increase of 1.5?
It's 1.6% or 2.5 mils. That will be included in the motion, unless you guys tell me otherwise here this evening.
So there's no way that we can take just that amount out of the fund balance? There wouldn't be a tax increase?
I mean, you can do that, but what the problem becomes is your next year, as you begin to look down at the next year's budget without this year's tax increase,
Right.
It becomes very problematic to get through next year, because as you begin next year, you're facing a $4 million deficit as you begin the process.
Mm.
And that's why it would not be my recommendation of the board to do that.
Don, what's the 1.6 amount to in dollars? Refresh my memory.
2.5 times 775,000 is nearly $2 million.
So that if we did zero, we lose the availability of having $2 million, additional $2 million for the next 5 years. So it's $10 million,
That's
right?
correct.
What's up? Can we come over tomorrow? Of course.
Of course you can.
Yeah, come on over.
Sure.
But you have that $2 million this year, and then $2 million next year, and that's where it's very difficult to overcome.
The compounding effect. Yeah.
Yes.
Don, what's the average tax increase for the average person?
Don, can you mute everybody?
Yes.
Mm.
I'm coming off my screen share here. I'm not sure what's going on my screen.
All
You guys
right.
still hear me? Oh,
All
there we
right.
go.
No, I'm just trying to ask, what the average tax increase would be
I
for
had
the individual home.
I had that figured out, Irene, and I can get that to you. I believe that let me see if I have this printed up here this evening. I know that the median value on the home is $27,360, and so the tax increase on $27,360, and I believe it's also on the last page of. I think we had discussed the other night that it would be about $100 a year. And if I go to, because didn't we say it was $9 a month at our last meeting? I've got everybody muted, so no one can give me any feedback on that.
Don, it was 110 on the 2.6% for the median household was 110.
Yes.
So at 1.6%, I would think it would be closer to in the 90s for the median household.
Hey Don,
Yeah.
it's on the document, Don, on board doc page of the budget document. It says the 2.5 mil is
$68. Joe, we heard everything to the amount.
$69. The last page says the
Yes.
2.5 mil increase on the average residence is
$69, because I just figured it out again here as I'm sitting here. I got 68, but let's say it's $69.
All right, thank you.
Any other comments as it relates to that issue? Suggestions?
I'm okay with where it's at.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, I'm concerned about zero would be wonderful, would be ideal, but as Marty pointed out and you pointed out, the compounding effect as we move forward would start to very quickly put us into a hole.
Yes.
That you know, and while this doesn't quite fill the hole, it's, as I keep bringing it up, it's at least a compromise.
Yeah.
Yes. I think it's a good compromise. I really do. Gentlemen, ladies, that's all I have for you tonight, other than we could open up for public comment.
Irene wants to make a
before we-
comment.
Muted.
Okay.
She's trying to unmute. You're muted, that's still Irene.
All right, there we go. I understand that 69 would be the average, but there's a lot of places in the district that certainly wouldn't come into that. It would be a lot more. I think this is a special year. I do understand the compounding issue, but I think we should be prepared that there will be a split vote on the budget. That's okay.
I'm not a member of this committee, but as a matter of record, I do agree with the consensus that it's necessary, and I would support the budget as it is moving forward.
I think traditionally, an important vote, they it's always advisable to have the board as a,
As a whole.
to come in 9-0. And I don't think,
We would hope, yes, I would hope. I understand. I definitely understand your concerns on this issue.
okay, that's fine.
Right.
Okay.
And I do hear Irene's point. I guess my concern is we're going into such an unknown period. I don't want to lose the availability of what we all said, that compounding effect. In 5 years, we have $10 million more, which we may use and may not.
Well,
So that's my concern.
And that's been my point since the beginning of this discussion. No matter where anybody falls on this issue, nobody's right, nobody's wrong.
Right.
It's just a matter of what you feel is the right thing to do for the long run. And that's where I fall in at. If I had guidance that I knew I could trust 100% going into next year, I might have a different opinion, but so many things have changed. I can't think that to lose that type of money over 10 years, it's just too great a leap, I think, to take. So I would recommend we stay on track, but I understand everyone's position on the issue.
Okay.
I mean, I think you have to bear in mind, we came together, board consensus on our labor issues. We discussed them at length, and we've entered into obligations. We went down the road with our program and where we want it to be, what we don't want to lose. And then I get it, the sand shifted, the bottom dropped out, but we are still committed to those obligations. And unless that changes, we have to pay for them. And I don't, we're locked into those, and I don't see that we should change that. You follow that?
And I'm not sure next year may not be worse from an economy standpoint, an economic standpoint, than this year. So we may be addressing the same issue in a more severe economy next year. So.
And I agree with all those comments. I just think that people should be aware that for some parts of the district, $69 is a lot of money. Okay.
Understood.
Yes.
So,
Understood and understood, yes.
So we
that's all I had to say.
definitely appreciate the concerns that are being brought forth.
Okay.
With that, we move to the close of the meeting with public comment. Mr. Stanley, do you want to lead us through that?
I'll mute myself here. If anybody wants to make a comment, raise your hand, and I will call on you. And we will begin with Mr. McGinley. Yep, there you are.
Thank you, Mr. Stanley. Good evening, everyone. I have two questions and a comment. My comment relates to Mr. Sullivan's comments. I can absolutely assure you the relationship between Aramark and the Neshaminy School District food service employees has vastly improved with the removal of the original point person. Number two, 2 and 3, two simple questions. Mr. Irwin, your version of board docs has all the attachments on it. The public version does not. When can we expect the attachments for 2.04 or 2.05 to be posted? Thank you.
We'll post them as soon as we're done here this evening. Or tomorrow morning, probably, but I'll get them to you.
Thank you.
Yep. Anybody else want to speak? Please use the raise hand feature. It's found under participants next to your name. You're looking for it. Any takers? Going once? Going twice? Back to you, Mr. Irwin.
Mr. Sullivan, do you or any other committee members have anything else to add or ask or discuss before we close? You're muted, sir.
I'm fine. Yeah, I'm done. I'm fine. I'm good. I'm okay to close.
Irene, you good?
No, I'm good.
Mr. Allen?
I am good.
Mr. Peritano?
Not a committee member, but I'm good.
Mr. McGee, would you like to add anything as we go forward?
Never ask him if he has anything to say.
I am good. I also note that Mr. Jones is here, and I think Mrs. Buckhalter is here, but I think I'm good.
Okay. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Meeting's adjourned, I guess.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you much.
Have a great night.